Yeah, 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 yeah. Look. Never switch on the homies in the day ones. They didn't want to open doors, so we made some. Take a bow on these haters.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve and Jerry, and today we're joined by the longtime beat writer covering the Minnesota Wild for the Athletic, and five-time Minnesota Sports Writer of the Year and the 2017 Red Fisher Award winner, voted by the peers as the top beat reporter in the NHL. He's also co-host of the Worst Seats in the House podcast and a key voice within the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Michael Russo, really excited to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Michael, when did you first discover the game of hockey?
I grew up on Long Island, Stan, as you know, and so I used to deliver Newsdays as a kid, and used to read the back pages. And I was really young, but I was there when the Islanders won their 4 Stanley Cups in a row. And I think that ingrained itself in me. And then I think delivering newspapers and reading all the articles on the back page and during my paper route when I get home from school in Plainview and Old Bethpage, I think it just kind of, when I think back at it, I just think it's too much of a coincidence. I think as a young guy, I just kind of fell in love with sports writing and fell in love with hockey, and I've never wanted to cover any other sport.
Well, what was your favorite team?
Well, definitely the Islanders growing up. I mean, I loved, Dwayne Sutter was my favorite player, and I got to cover him in Florida when he was assistant coach and then eventually interim head coach. And he's still one of my favorite people of all time. But, it was a dream covering the Florida Panthers because Bill Torrey was the president and Danny Potvin was their color analyst and Billy Smith was their goalie coach. And obviously Dwayne Sutter was there. And it just, I don't know. It just was like a dream come true to go down there and cover those guys because I was just such a huge Mike Bossy fan. A couple of years ago, we did this all 100 NHL of all time project at the Athletic, and I got to talk to Mike Bossy's daughter for that story on the feature that I wrote on him for that piece. And so that was a dream, getting to know since guys like Brian Trottier and obviously Bobby Nystrom and Colton Gillies. Colton Gillies is Gillies' nephew. I covered him in Florida, but getting to know Clark Gillies before he passed. It was just a really, really fun team to root for.
Well, Minnesota Wilds clinched this spot in the playoffs. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome. Does it feel like a team that just made the playoffs, or can they actually do some damage? What do you think?
I think they can do some damage, especially, they're going to play Dallas in the first round. The Wild have lost to Dallas twice in the playoffs and always seem to struggle with them. But I will say, I think the Wild are on par with them this year. I think they made the big trade for Quinn Hughes. They got a couple superstars in Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov. Really good players like Joel Eriksson Ek and Brock Faber. And, Dallas is definitely, a little banged up right now. Obviously, they got time to get healthy before the playoffs. But right now, at least, the Wild are healthy. And I do think that they have a chance. They've been good all year. They've been in a little rut lately, but so has Dallas and Colorado. And I really do think that this team has got a shot to make some noise in the postseason.
At the trade deadline, you picked up Michael McCarron and Nick Foligno. So you got a full Foligno lineup now. And I read an article that you wrote about how they're willing to protect their star players. And I can't tell you how important that is because the last year the Canucks made the playoffs, we played Nashville and the Nashville forwards were like heat-seeking missiles on Quinn Hughes. And they just punished him, and so no Canuck stood up for him. So, and I think that was a big reason. That probably was the gestation of why Quinn Hughes wanted to leave because and Nashville had Roman Josi, and we never laid a glove on him, and it just it was very frustrating to watch. But Minnesota seems to have all the elements they need to go deep in the playoffs. So you got the goaltending, you got the defense, you got offense. To me, if they're going to run, they're going to run now.
Yeah, I agree. They're in a win now mode. When you get Quinn Hughes, you're not playing for the future, especially considering the Wild have to extend his contract. So they went out and made some moves at the deadline. They got some skill in Bobby Brink and a real tough guy in Michael McCarron. That the one thing I'll say watching him here is he could play the game too. Wins draws, has some sneaky skill, obviously size, and he's the first one to stick up to you. But they got that in Marcus Foligno, Zach Bogosian, Nick Foligno, who they added as well. So they've got a lot of pieces to be a deep team and kind of throw any lineup that they want against the Dallas Stars and potentially, obviously, in the future come postseason.
Michael, this is a journalistic puzzle, an enormous tragedy. A colleague of yours, woman who's been in the hockey business a long time, established. She and the kids die in a fire. There has never been, as I've seen, an explanation about how the fire began. Anything from the fire department. It just was like it happened, and nobody followed up on it, as far as I see. Do you know anything more? Why? What caused it? Or
No, we obviously want to know badly. All of us are just curious what they were going through. They are investigating it. The one thing they've ruled out is arson and something happening intentionally. So the question is, was it an accident? Was it an electrical? Was it something with gas? Who knows? I think all of us would love to know. It's been just a brutal tragedy here in Minnesota. Jesse Pierce was an incredible person, incredible mother, incredible wife, and incredible, just beautiful 3 kids that we got to know here because she used to bring them in the locker room, when she was a young mother and navigating work with being a mom. And so we got to meet Hudson and I've seen Avery and Caden around. And so it's just a brutal tragedy. She was absolutely a shining light here in Minnesota. Fans loved her. She had her fingers in everything, not just writing for NHL.com, but writing for Minnesota Hockey Journal, USA Hockey Magazine. She had her own podcast, Bar Down Beauties, on the Score North Network. She did, she started as a USA Hockey intern. Everything with charities. She was just an incredible person, Stan.
It seems like a long time since the tragedy, without any talk, any hints of how it happened and who was investigating.
Yeah, I mean, the White Bear Police Department is investigating as well as I believe the White Bear Fire Department. But I think that it's just one of those things that takes time. They know that they say that it's not arson, and now it's just trying to figure out, was it a gas line issue? Was it electrical? Was it, something, appliances? So they have all these search warrants where they're going into the house. I did go to the house a week or so ago just to look at it, and it's it's shocking because like her car's still in the driveway, like she's home. But 2, like, you could see what it must have been like in that house. The flames were, beyond belief, where the police department that were first on the scene weren't able to get in. And then it took a while for the fire department to put the fire out. So I think that there's just a lot, not being a fire investigator, I just think there's a lot that they've got to figure out in terms of trying to figure out in a burnt out house, how a fire, what the genesis was.
That's honestly heartbreaking. And how long did you work together?
Probably a decade. She's been working for NHL.com for a long time. We have a podcast network here, Talk North, and she was on our network for a long time. But she never traveled, but on the at home games, she was at every home game, every home practice. Was part of our team of beat writers. We didn't, sometimes when you're newspaper beat writers or the Athletic, NHL.com might be kind of a separate entity, but she was one of us. She, every day that she came to practice, it was a smile on her face. Players respected her. Coaches and PR staffs and players from other teams really respected her because, in the shrinking media world, which you all know, You know, a lot of times traveling beat writers don't go on the road. So a lot of times she'd be one of the only people in the visiting locker room after a game or talking to the opposing coach. So, you know, the number of text messages that I've received in the last couple of weeks from opposing teams, coaches, GMs, players, it's been tremendous. And I think it says everything about how respected Jessie.
Yeah, that's really difficult to hear. Our thoughts are with everyone affected. We'll shift gears here a little bit. I want to ask you about Kaprizov.
What makes Kirill Kaprizov so different from other stars in the league?
He's you know, he's got the fourth line work ethic with the first line skill. He is a grinder. He reminds Stan, you know, I mean, we know who he reminds me of is Zach Parise. He goes into corners, he goes to the net, you know, and then he's got the superstar skill that's as good as anybody in the league. Incredible shot, you know, power play. He could be dynamic, and so. I think that's what probably separates him from other stars is he's not perimeter. You know, he doesn't have maybe the speed of a McDavid, but he goes to the dirty areas. He's got an incredible, you know, way about him. His compete level is like few other stars that I've ever covered. You know, and I've covered a handful in my day. You know, Pavel Bure down in Florida, Marian Gaborik here, Matt Boldy, who's an aspiring star. And you know, I've just, you know, really grown to appreciate him. Obviously he had them by the neck this offseason, and, you know, he didn't, you know, they did not want him to leave, and they made him the highest paid player in NHL history starting next year. You know, I know that still rubs some fans the wrong way, but the reality is that having him in a Wild uniform is a lot better than having him not in a Wild uniform, and the Wild had to ante up.
Billy Guerin, in terms of his managership of the franchise. And
You know, it's funny.
Be nice. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah, I know. I'm always nice to Billy because I'm, you know, he can with one palm of his hand just crush me. I bet you in those mid '90s when the Devils were winning cups, you weren't expecting that Billy Guerin would be a GM one day. But he has done a really good job here. He's been here a while. Obviously, he made the hard decision to buy out Parise and Suter, so put them in 4 years of cap pain. And now they've escaped it, and now he's trying to be bold and really make big moves. Obviously, they get Kaprizov signed. They got some guys like Boldy and Faber and Eriksson Ek on just, you know, sweetheart deals, really, in my opinion. And then he makes the bold move for Quinn Hughes. So he's done a really good job here. You know, I'm doing this agent poll right now for The Athletic. It's an anonymous agent poll. And, you know, in best run franchise, he's getting a lot of love from agents on just how good of a job he's done and sort of, creating waves in the NHL by showing how bold he'll be. Boldy, just think about this. Boldy is going to make $10 million less than Kirill starting next year for the next 3 years. Boldy is just an unreal hockey player, hit the 40 goal mark the other day. And that's that's something that they're going to need against the Dallas Stars in the first round. You know, the Stars have guys like Wyatt Johnston, Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson. So they got stars up and down their lineup. And so the Wild are going to have to combat that. And usually where the Wild go is where Boldy and Kaprizov want to take them. The two of them had great postseasons last year, especially Matt. And they are going to have to be really, really good come postseason this year.
Matt Boldy is signed through 2030. And now that contract looks like a bargain. Is there any sign of jealousy or anything is going to be trouble on the horizon? Is he going to want to renegotiate?
Well, you can't renegotiate in the NHL, so he's on that contract, and he signed it in a different world. You know, you're right; it was a great signing by the Wild and their staff at the time. I believe Chris O'Hearn's the one that did that deal. Now he's with the Chicago Blackhawks. But I don't think it's Matt's nature to be jealous. He knows what he gets. And the other thing is Matt's so young, still 24 years old, that when his contract's up in 3 years, he's still going to hit a huge contract. He'll probably be a $20 million player at that point, depending on where this cap goes. So he's going to make his money back.
How many years did you work in Florida?
I was there. Well, I was there for 14 as a sports writer, but the last 10 covering the Panthers. In fact, Stan, I got a funny, I wish I knew where it is. I got a piece of paper from a cutout of the Fisher Report that you wrote in like the early 2000s. And one of the things you put in there is you were talking about different beat writers that you respected, and you said Mike Keenan might not always agree, but you got to read Russo. He's becoming one of the most arresting hockey writers in the league. So I still have this like hanging in my office here.
Okay, tell me this. What was the most outstanding thing you remember about covering the Panthers? What was the last year, by the way?
05. So I left after the lockout. I've been here for the last 21 years. I mean, covering Pavel Bure was second to none. And, you know, in a clutch and grab world, he scored 58 and 59 goals back-to-back years for the Panthers. And it was I remember his first goal on a breakaway at Nassau Coliseum. Robert Svala hit him on a home run pass, and we almost fell out of the press box there in the Coliseum because we had never seen a breakaway covering the Panthers in the 5 years that I covered them. I mean, I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but you know, he was just the way he competed, his unbelievable ability to score goals. It was like something I'd never covered. The other thing, just covering the Panthers is getting to cover Brian Murray really set my career off. You know, Brian Murray really, in a way, even though we had our battles, kind of took me under his wing, really helped teach me the game, how to be a reporter, how to deal with conflict at times with the coach or the GM, and just treated me with respect. He never treated me like a child, even though I was a child covering those Panthers teams. So, you know, you always remember those things. And so, you know, I remember when he died 5 or 6 years ago, I was absolutely devastated, still had a really good relationship with him. You know, his you know, just the way that he dealt with me is something that I'll never forget. And it's probably why I've done this now job for 31 years covering the NHL.
How about John Cooper? How great is this guy?
Oh, he's unbelievable.
What makes this guy so great? And he never gets fired.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think he's just I think a lot of it is his demeanor behind the scenes. I think that he's just a respected coach. He's got this nature about him that's really fascinating. He obviously knows the sport. And that team has had unbelievable sustained success during his tenure. You know, I work here in Minnesota at the Athletic with Joe Smith, and Joe covered the Lightning for many, many years and has a really good relationship with Cooper. And I know the respect level that he has for him. And I just think it's that way with every player that he coaches.
What was it like interviewing Pavel Bure? Was he funny? What was his personality like?
Yeah, he was fascinating. Like, he was a celebrity. The guy I really liked down there was Val Bure, his brother. And Val and I are still tight to this day. In fact, I order wine from Val every now and then. Val's got Bure Family Wines out in St. Helena, and owns that. You know, obviously with his wife Candace and his son Lev now works for him as well, and I think even Max. But Val was incredible. Pavel was a superstar, but he was also a celebrity. Like, you know, he was having to deal with paparazzi down in Miami. He was dating Anna Kournikova at the time. Every place he went, he had cameras following him. So it was very different, you know, covering an NHL player that was like that. But he was great to deal with, you know, always treated us with respect. And again, was just a tremendous hockey player.
How different is it interviewing Kirill Kaprizov compared to Pavel Bure? Are there some similarities since they're both Russian?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably one of them. I think, you know, I would say Kirill is, in a lot of ways, a lot easier to deal with because, you know, he doesn't have that sort of aura around him of being the Russian Rocket. He's friendly, always smiling. His English is tremendous now compared to when he got here, which I'm always, you know, I think that you'd probably appreciate this, Elena. I mean, you know, I'm always amazed at these European players, especially Russians, that come here and they don't speak any English and they got to talk to their teammates in English, talk to reporters in English. And I can't imagine how difficult that would be if one of us went over to Russia and tried to play in the KHL and talk to Russian press. And so I've always respected the way that Kirill tried to talk to us. But then there came a point where he just didn't want to use a translator anymore because he knew it would help him more. Like, that's another, Danilo Yurov is another Russian player the Wild have on their team, refuses to use a translator because he wants to use it to use the experience of talking to English speaking writers as a way to learn the language, and he's done a tremendous job. So and guys like Tarasenko, Kaprizov have really helped Yurov assimilate to being in the United States this year. So we have a lot of really good mature players on our team that we're covering. Yakov Trenyan's another Russian player that's a hoot to cover. So we got we got 4 in that locker room, and they're all awesome.
That's awesome. I mean, there are people saying Kaprizov could be the next Ovechkin. And yeah, I remember when Alexander first came to the US, his English wasn't great. I still remember that video, I think it was on YouTube, when he scored that hole-in-one on the golf course. And he was like, I swear to God.
Yeah. I don't know, like Kirill, if Kirill's career started as young as Ovi's in the NHL, I think he could be the next Ovechkin. I just think it's hard when you start at 24 years old, and he's dealt with shortened seasons because of the pandemic, 2 shortened seasons. So I think it's just going to be really, really hard for him to be the next Ovi. But I know there's a lot of respect between Ovi and Kirill. Every time the Washington Capitals and the Minnesota Wild play, they go out to eat. Kirill, remember at the All-Star game in Vegas, impersonated Alex during the skills competition. Malkin's another one that Kirill, he works out with them all the time in Moscow, and they're really, really tight. And I know Kucherov and Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky and Sorokin, they're all buddies with Kirill.
I got to give you a little hot tip, or a bit of advice. Never say somebody's going to be the next Ovechkin.
Yeah.
Ovechkin, my friend, is like Rocket Richard. There's never going to be anybody like the Rocket, and there's never going to be anybody. And what's so amazing to me is not only the durability of this guy, but it goes hand in hand. So opposite personalities of another guy who's fantastic side by side, and that's Sid Crosby. These are inimitable guys. I mean, people are going to be talking for years, decades about Russo, the great hockey writer, and I'll smack anybody in the face and say this guy's going to be the next Russo. You're inimitable. This guy, Ovechkin, just defies description. Goes right along. Same thing with Sid, quietly with Sid, but wow. What a treat to be able to cover these guys.
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's frightening to me that like this could be it for Ovi. Like I still remember in 2004 at the Stanley Cup final in Tampa, interviewing Ovi in a ballroom at the Tampa Marriott there, because they bring all the top prospects in, and just sitting there at a table and listening to him talk, and to Elena's point, barely could speak English, and then you see him. Here we are years later. He's got 1,000 combined goals, broke Gretzky's record. There's never going to be another one, and he does it in today's era. And he did this in shortened seasons, right? 2 pandemic shortened seasons, a lockout shortened season. He missed the entire 2004-05 season because of the lockout. Imagine how many goals he would have if he didn't have to endure that.
I mean, he broke his record last year, and that's even after missing about 3 weeks with an injury. I think it was a broken foot. And a lot of people were saying, that's it, he'll probably slow down and catch up next year. But nope, he was back on the ice in like 2 or 3 weeks. He's built different, that's for sure.
No doubt.
The crazy thing about Ovechkin is all the goals he scored, I'd say 2/3 of them were scored from that one spot. And like, it's just like, here I am, here's what I'm going to do. I dare you to stop it. And he still scores. Like, it's crazy.
Yep. There's a difference between him and Sidney. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jerry, that the guy, he's there all the time, and they haven't figured it out yet, and his career is practically over. And he's a funny guy. I once interviewed him early on, and I asked him, how does it feel to be better looking than Crosby? And I got a little laugh at him. And I love the guy.
Yeah, I think the one guy that right now I'm just amazed watching is Macklin Celebrini. Like, he is going to have a spectacular career. Like, I cannot wait to see where this kid goes at 19 years old, to have 100 some odd points and almost single-handedly get the San Jose Sharks into the playoffs right now. It's amazing. These young kids today are unreal.
Not to compare again, but everyone keeps comparing him to Crosby, like he's the next Crosby. But he's a future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
Celebrini's been involved in like 48% of San Jose's goals.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible statistic. And yeah, he is probably the most talented 19-year-old I've ever seen, other than Gretzky. It's just, he's crazy. I want to go back to Minnesota here, the trade, the Quinn Hughes trade. What is the reaction to the trade? Like, you basically gave up 4 first-round picks for Quinn Hughes. And just as a side note, the Canucks were insisting on getting Matt Boldy in that trade, and Minnesota wouldn't do it. So anyway, basically 4 first-round picks for Quinn Hughes. So how did it go down in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time there was probably sticker shock of like, wow, how can you give up this much for one player? But the reality is that if they are able to extend Quinn Hughes, it's absolutely worth it. I mean, this guy's been a game changer offensively for this team. I think they were ranked like 28th in the league in defense scoring at the time, and now they're first. He's got 50 points in 43 games. He's been unreal for them. And look, if you're in this division and this conference, but especially in this division, and you got to go up against a team with Cal McCarr in the second round and a team with Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley in the first round, you need a defenseman like this. And that's the one thing this organization has really never had, is a game-changing defenseman that was offensive in this way. And he's got the ability to play 30 minutes a game. He's got the puck on his stick more than anybody around that I've ever seen. It's crazy how often he's got the puck on his stick. So he's been really good. But to your point, Jerry, like if they don't re-sign him, I think that obviously that's going to be a major problem in just the amount of assets that they gave up. But I think they're going to re-sign him.
They got the best player. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yep.
There's a base trade that explains it. 5 players were traded by the Maple Leafs 1947 for one player, Max Bentley. For one player. And what Chicago got was a complete forward line of very good players: Gay Stewart, Gus Bodner, and Bud Poyle, all top players, plus 2 defensemen. Can you imagine that? A line that has been so good that it had a nickname, the Flying Fort line. Yeah. Then you got 2 good defensemen. Bob Golden almost made it to the Hall of Fame. But what happened? The Leafs got the best player. It's always the best player. And the Leafs won with Bentley. They won the Cup again in 48, 49, and 51. You know what the Blackhawks got? Zip. Nothing.
Yeah.
They didn't even make the playoffs.
What was it like interviewing Quinn Hughes? He always looks like he's seeing ghosts.
Yeah. I mean, he's really good to deal with. Obviously he's not the type of guy that I think, a lot, like one of my favorite things to do in a locker room is just shoot the breeze with players. He's not up for the small talk really, but in my sit downs with him, I've done a bunch of features on him and his family. I was at the Olympics as well in Milan. And so I've gotten to develop a relationship with him. I also cover all the NHL media tours, so I knew him pretty well before he got here. So he's really good to deal with.
How was it in the Olympics? Did you get to go into the dressing room after the U.S. won the gold?
No, I was not allowed in there. I was, but we got them at the mix zone and things like that. But that was one heck of a party, as we all saw.
Do you experience any jealousy in terms of the Canadian media against the American media? Now, going back many years, we Americans got the feeling that they looked down on us. What do you guys know about hockey? Stuff like that. You ever experienced that?
No, actually, it's been the complete opposite my entire career. I mean, a lot of my great, the mentors of my career, are up there. I mean, Jim Matheson, Eric DeHatchik, George Johnson, Tony Gallagher, these guys treated me really, really well. And I never, felt that way. Same thing with the Toronto media, the Paul Hunters, the Lance Hornbys, people like that, Damian Cox, Al Strachan. They always treated me like a colleague. So I never really felt that at all. Especially today. I mean, we all have. I mean, to me, the Professional Hockey Writers Association, we're all in a fraternity together, Stan, and I think that the respect level that we have with everybody up north and vice versa is still as good as it's ever been, at least for me. I mean, maybe it was different back before my time, but I could tell you, I mean, like guys like Jim Matheson, Eric Duhatschek, like I owe a lot to those guys. And just the way that they've treated me, the way, just reading their stuff, watching the way they conducted themselves, watching the way they interview people, all that. It really is a big reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing.
I wonder, maybe you're a member? Are you a officer in the association?
Yeah, I am.
Well, maybe you can explain to me what I think is a disgrace in terms of the association. One of the greatest hockey writers, hockey minds is in Toronto, Steve Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
It's unheard of. It's impossible that he's not in the winner of the Ferguson. Impossible.
Yeah.
And, well, don't me. Tell me why.
Oh, well, I mean, I will say, like, I'm not on the Elmer Ferguson committee, so I don't know. I mean, so I don't even know as far as, I mean, the way it works is that you have to be nominated by somebody. So I assume that over the years that he has been. But I can't, I'm in the officer of the PHWA, but I've never been on the Elmer Ferguson committee and picking, future Elmer Ferguson award winners. In terms of Steve specifically, I love him. He's one of my close friends. Every time I get to cover things with him, I enjoy our time together. So I absolutely, I agree with you. He should be an Elmer Ferguson Award winner. But I can't, as far as the actual specifics of why he's not in, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
They cover that up. They don't reveal anything about it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I don't know, they don't, in terms of revealing things, like, I don't know when and who has nominated him. And things like that. But I could tell you, if I was on the committee and his name was in front of me, he would absolutely draw my attention.
I'll let him know that. I'm sure he'll be happy. Sure he will.
You could send him this clip. So, the funny thing about Steve Simmons, so he lives, I don't want to name the condominium complex that he lives down in South Florida, but my grandparents used to live in the same complex. So every time I get together with them, it's I can't help but think of my grandparents because they lived in the same complex down in the city that he lives in down in Florida.
You live there. Are you amazed at how hockey has grown?
Yeah, I am. I mean, one reason why I left from Minnesota, Stan, is because the Sun Sentinel, which was an incredible paper to work for back in the day, and I owe my entire career to them. But after the lockout in 2004-05, they basically didn't want to cover the Panthers anymore, and it was that irrelevant down there. And basically, he was telling me, if you want to continue to work here, here's your choice of beats. And I never felt like they were gonna, invest into continuing to cover the Panthers long term. So that's one reason why I looked at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune before I came to the Athletic. But every time I go down, like, the one cool part about my role at the Athletic is I get to cover the conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals every year, regardless if Minnesota is out or in. And usually they're out. So I've covered 3 straight Stanley Cup final runs for the Panthers. And to start my career down there and see what it's become, it's been awesome. The fans down there are tremendous. The organization is so perfectly run by Bill Zito and the ownership group led by Vinny Viola. Paul Maurice has done an unreal job, but it's been really cool, like being on the ice in 2 straight Stanley Cup wins for them in an arena that I was literally in a hard hat for when it was built. Got to take a tour of it when it was half built and in a hard hat, and here I am on the ice covering them right after they won 2 cups in a row.
What do you think made them fall off the cliff this year and miss the playoffs?
Yeah, I think injuries. I mean, you lose Sasha Barkov effectively game 1. Matthew Tkachuk obviously, wasn't available. They've had 300 something man game, maybe even 400 man games of injuries this year. And you just can't win like that. They've had so many guys out. The Brad Marchands, the Wild were just down there, and they didn't have Reinhart in the game. Evan Rodriguez got hurt in the game. Anton Liddell didn't play in the game. Obviously, Barkov didn't play. So I just think when you've got that many injuries, Elena, I just think that's what allowed it. They'll be back. They need the rest. I mean, they've had 3 straight runs to the Stanley Cup Finals. That is, I can't imagine what it's done to some of those bodies. I remember being in the Vegas locker room after they lost in the Stanley Cup Final 3 years ago, and just seeing like Brandon Montour take his gear off and his arm is like attached to his, he's guys playing through a major shoulder injury. Remember Matthew Chuck got hit in the game before and was playing with a ruptured spleen or something. Aaron Ekblad could barely walk in the locker room. So I just think, and knowing that was 3 years ago, and what I can imagine the amount of games that they've played since, it's unreal, the wear and tear for both the Oilers and the Panthers the last couple of years.
How about the Lightning to win the Cup this year? What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I think the East is wide open. I think Carolina, this is as good a chance as they've ever had now that Florida's not going to be in it. I think Buffalo is really good. I think the East is wide open. Tampa, to me, is obviously the odds-on favorite in that conference. And they also don't have to deal with Florida, and they've had a trouble with them the last couple postseasons. In the West, I think Colorado is obviously the team to beat. But, look, Dallas and Minnesota and Colorado, they're going to beat each other up in the first 2 rounds. So really, if you're in the Pacific or in that one of the wild card teams, probably Utah, that's going to play the Pacific winner, it could almost give you an easy run to that 3rd round. And then you just got to win really one tough round. So it's going to be it could be wide open in the West as well.
I didn't hear you on the Bulls. So do they have a chance to win the Cup?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they're as good a team as they're. I mean, to me, they'd be the favorite in the East right now with Florida not in it.
Look at Colorado losing to Vancouver the other night.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it's tough. It's been tough for Dallas, Minnesota, and Colorado for a while now. I think it's hard to get the juices up when I mean, like Dallas and Minnesota have known that they're playing against each other for like 3.5 months. And I just think that when you get to this time of year, you're so cognizant to try to not get hurt. It's hard to get up for these games. And like the Wild have 2 really tough games in a row against Ottawa and Detroit. These are 2 desperate teams fighting for their playoff lives. And, the Wild better be ready to compete these next 2 games.
I ask you one more question related. Why do you think Tampa Bay has a chance to win the Cup?
Well, anytime you have Vasilevsky in net and Kucherov, who's just like, to me right now, this is going to be the biggest, like the most competitive heart race I've ever seen between McKinnon, Caulfield, Macklin, Celebrini, and Kucherov, and McDavid. And there's just so many Val winners. But when you have Kucherov, when you have guys like Cirelli, when you have Jake Gensel, Braden Point, Vasi, Hedman, if he's back, that's Ryan McDonough. That team is up to top to bottom as deep as there can be. And you got Cooper, as we talked about, behind the bench.
What makes this guy good? Like 10 years, 11 years.
Yeah, no, it's unreal, Stan. Like he's like the Maven, but behind the bench.
I thought Vasilevsky took a step back the last couple of years, but this year somebody's put some caffeine in his coffee because he's right back where he was. He's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about the Minnesota goaltending, Gustafsson and Felstead. Is it Felstead?
Valstead, yeah.
Felstead, yeah. And solid. Like I don't see a better tandem in the NHL right now. They're excellent.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's been a big topic here the last little while. If what happens if Gustafsson isn't good, do you go just right to Valstead? Like you just cannot imagine how good of a goaltender this guy has a chance to be. But Gus has been really good for the Wild in the playoffs. He's clearly going to be the veteran. So he's probably going to be the number 1 going in. But, how big is his leash? If he all of a sudden struggles or the Wild lose a big game, knowing that you have Valstead coming out of the bullpen, so to speak, it gives them an opportunity to really use both goaltenders.
How do they get along? Are they friends?
Yeah, buddies. Play golf all the time, video games. Obviously, both from Sweden. Gus really was mentored by Marc-Andre Fleury, and now he feels the way to pay it forward for Wally, and Jesper loves him.
What's the biggest issue journalistically in the NHL right now for you guys? What's the big story happening or not happening or should happen? What are you guys focusing for a little excitement?
Yeah, I mean, obviously if you're talking about like specifically hockey, I think this summer is going to be fascinating with Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar both up for extensions and how they reset the defense market. Similarly with Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard, Leo Carlson, how they're going to reset the contract, the entry level coming out of your entry level deal, and how that's going to change the landscape. If you're talking about the business, obviously it's a shrinking business, as you know, Stan. It's hard to be in buildings and not see visiting writers coming through. Very few visiting writers, or cover games anymore. It seems. Luckily, at the Athletic, we cover. Here in Minnesota, we're at all 82 games, and obviously we'll have 2 writers at every Wild road game during the playoffs and at every home game. So we're lucky here at the Athletic. Being owned by the New York Times, but unfortunately it's there's a lot of newspapers that aren't healthy right now.
If you could cover any NHL team apart from Minnesota for 1 year, just for the experience, who would you be and why?
I mean, I'll give you 2 answers for that. One, for the excitement level, I'd love to cover Vegas. I just think that would be incredible. Both because of the city. But 2, covering an organization like that just wants to win and will do anything to win. I mean, you can never turn your phone off, or all of a sudden you might wake up and find out that Bruce Cassidy was fired with 8 games left in the season. Yeah, and then the other team would be a team like the Rangers. I just think I've never gotten to work in New York. As being living there. I'm from New York originally. And just covering a team like that and that historic, iconic building. I love going to Madison Square Garden. I love every trip that I have ever taken in New York City. So that'd probably be the other one, even though I grew up an Islander fan.
Yeah, but you'd have to write about what a disgrace this team is. Unmitigated disgrace in their centennial year.
Yes.
Centennial year. Every time they have an event honoring the centennial year every month, they lose.
Yeah.
This is an absolute terrible team, and the future is not too good. How would you write about them?
Probably rip them, just like you just said it, laid out. I mean, that, especially if you're in New York, you can't hold your punches. That's for sure, as we know by the late great Larry Brooks.
Yeah, well, Larry Brooks, I'm glad you brought him up because he certainly was a tremendous journalist and all that, working for the Post and has been. Molly Walker does a very good job. But the situation is such now that they got 3 more games to go, and tickets. You could get tickets now. They're not filling the joint anymore, and they're giving away, selling tickets like half price. It's a shame because even guys on opposition, like my buddy Chico Resch, he says we need the Rangers to be good.
Yeah.
Rangers got to be good,
Absolutely. I totally am with you.
But they're not. They're not. And some of my friends who will be on, you got a guy coming up, Sean McCaffrey, points a finger. Bad GM. How does this guy get a new contract? Can't even make the playoffs. Now it's 2 years in a row. It's a joke.
Yeah, he obviously, Chris obviously has a really good relationship with Jim Dolan, and that's probably the reason. That it's right there. But I agree with you. The Rangers have to be good. They're an iconic franchise. It's in a sport like this, you need those iconic franchises to be good. It doesn't help anybody when Toronto stinks, when Chicago stinks, when the Rangers stink. Detroit hasn't made the playoffs in years and really struggling in March again. You have these original 6 teams that are just not doing anything the last several years.
Yeah, and the Leafs are having the worst season.
But I want to go back to Las Vegas. What do you think of them firing the coach and hiring Torts?
I don't think it's a shock. Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee and obviously Bill Foley, the owner, they're in it to win it. And Vegas has not been very good for a while. The problem that Bruce Cassidy ran into, because he's a fabulous coach, is their goaltending has been really, really bad this year, and you can't win with goaltending that they've had. And so, obviously they tried to make the move to bring in Carter Hart, then he got hurt. Aiden Hill just hasn't been good. So that's the issue. I mean, John Tortorella could be a miracle worker, but unless Aiden Hill and Carter Hart are going to start stopping pucks, they're not going to go anywhere.
Look at Marner scoring a hattie on the night when the Leafs get eliminated from the playoffs. Timing is unbelievable. Maybe Torts worked some magic.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, he's a good coach, but he's a different coach.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Torts is the right guy. I mean, he's the most recycled coach in NHL history. I mean, I think this is like his 9th team he's coached.
Well, I think what Vegas is obviously banking on is that you get that coach bump after you fire a coach. I mean, it happens all the time. We just saw it in Columbus with Rick Bowness, and now it feels like reality is setting in for them, and they're not playing well again. But I think that's what they're hoping is, this is just the culture, the sticker shock of getting the attention of a locker room that they've been disappointed in.
The coach story that beats all is in Buffalo, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
They bring back a guy who everybody would say is a retread. He's the retread's retread, and this team is fantastic. And a bad start too. I don't know how he does it, but this guy's got to be coach of the year.
I agree with you. There's a lot of guys that could be coaches of the year this year, but I love Lindy. I mean, I covered him down in Florida as an assistant coach. I was in the Florida Marlins press box in 1997 writing the story for the Sun Sentinel of him going to Buffalo the first time to become coach. Then he was there forever. Then he's bounced around a little bit, obviously Dallas, Jersey, some other places, and then he goes back to Buffalo, and he's just done a sensational job. And so, I was joking with somebody the other day, Stan, like, could this be the first time like a fired GM might be GM of the year? Like, it's true. Like Kevin Adams has got to be sitting with his feet up saying, like, see, I told you, this is the team that I built,
I got to tell you that Lindy Ruff is the only coach in NHL history or in my history that I ever apologized to. And we had a game, an Islander game, and my producer told me, you got to ask him in the morning media thing, the scrum, ask him how he feels about the fact that if he loses tonight, the team is going to be out of the playoffs. And my producer said they got it from that great service that used to be the Elias service that used to, and they were always, they were always accurate. So I asked him the question, how do you feel about losing, you be out of the playoffs, you lose tonight? And he gave me a steely-eyed look, and before he could say anything, one of the reporters whispered in my ear, you got that wrong, buddy. That's not going to be true. And then of course, Lindy gave it to me, which he did. And then I got back afterwards, and I called the producer, and I said, where the hell did you get this information? And she said, well, this time they were wrong. So I marched down the hall, and I said, you were right, I was wrong, and I apologize. Lindy's a great guy. When he was a player, he was one of the funniest guys in the league, just a great character. But he's a retread, and he goes into Buffalo, and they start off terribly, and then all of a sudden, they never lose. It's a great town. Buffalo's one of the best hockey towns.
Oh, yeah.
What?
It's going to be wild in that building come postseason.
I was there last week, and the atmosphere was incredible. The fans are so excited about the playoffs. And I mean, rightfully so. 14 years, no playoffs. And the fans definitely deserve it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you a little bit more. When you were growing up, did you play hockey?
No, I played street hockey, but I grew up I moved to Florida when I was 12. So we had no rinks or anything like that. So I just became a sports writer, but obviously was a huge hockey fan, started covering the West Palm Beach Blaze when I was a teenager, which was the Sunshine Hockey League, had 4 teams. Bill Nyrup, there was a name from the past, Stan. He was
good one.
Yes, he was commissioner of the league, coached the West Palm franchise, GM of the West Palm franchise, basically owned the franchise, owned the league. And he really taught me a lot about the sport, coincidentally from Minnesota too. So before his dad passed, I got to know him after I moved here. His dad was actually president and CEO of Northwest Airlines back in the day.
Did you know Joe Dionisio?
No, I never knew him.
Okay, because he was the first hockey writer. Covered the NHL meeting when the Tampa Bay got admitted, and he was from Long Island. He was a Newsday guy.
Yeah, a lot of us. Mark Lazarus from the Athletic used to work for the Chicago Sun-Times. He also is from Long Island, so we still always joke around about the Mets and things like that. But yeah, no, I never played, but grew up as this young sports writer. Started when I was like 14 or 15 with the Sun Sentinel, and grew up in that newsroom. And that was back when I was you're romantic about newspaper newsrooms. In fact, every time I go into the New York Times now, it gives me the same feeling as I did every time I walked into the Sun Sentinel or the Minneapolis Star Tribune during the day. Because at the Athletic, we don't, we work from our homes or press boxes or airplanes. We don't really work from a newsroom. So whenever I'm in the New York Times, we have workstations there for the Athletic. Go in there, grab lunch in their cafeteria, and it just gives me that old newspaper feeling.
And where did you go to school, and what did you get your degree in?
Actually, I never got my degree. So I started at Florida, and then the Sun Sentinel called me and basically offered me the Panthers gig. So I moved back home from Florida, covered preps a little bit and colleges, also freelance for Associated Press and covered Marlins and Heat and Dolphins and things like that. University of Florida, FSU, Miami. I grew up, sort of in a newsroom.
How about the commissioner? Can you imagine that he has been commissioner for now 33 years?
Crazy. My entire career covering the NHL, he's been the head guy. I am one person. A lot of people can consider me a Gary Bettman apologist. I have a lot of respect for him. I covered this league in the mid 90s. I've seen the way that this league has grown, the way the television packages have grown, the way that salaries have exploded for the NHL players, the way they've made the game safer. Back in the day, Stan, there were headshots galore, knee injuries, things like that. That's like, I think they've done a really good job legislating the Rafi Torres plays out of the game. I think they've done a good job. The owners have never made more money. The players have never made more money. And I think Gary is a big reason for that.
Anybody who calls you an apologist for Bettman is stupid.
Yeah.
Very stupid. I know one agent I keep hearing gets the same old crap from him. The players are making more money than ever. Yep. The teams are making more money than ever. The values of the teams are more money than ever. And they're doing their best to police the game. I do want to say one thing that worries me, and that is the number of injuries.
Yeah.
And I say the number of injuries are because the players are bigger, and the rinks never got bigger.
Yeah.
1917, same size as the rink. Players have gone from average 5'8" average to about 160 pounds, and now everybody's got to be like a gorilla. Or what's his name? King Kong. That's the guy.
Yeah. I do agree with you there. It is such a fast game. The technology is crazy, and it's so bigger. And then the games are so condensed, especially now that the international game is going to be on the calendar every 2 years, and there's going to be 2 more games. So I do think that the NHL and the NHLPA need to look at this, because guys are getting hurt. What I was more talking about are dirty plays, like people act like that this game is this violent game because the Department of Player Safety isn't doing their job. They used to deal with many more headshots. Now, when it happens, it's such a rarity. In a lot of ways, they've taken the open ice hit out of the game, Stan. I can't tell you how many times a guy will be skating through the middle of the ice with his head down, and I immediately like, oh my God. But then they, it's just, you take it for granted that somebody's going to peel off and not hit them. And, in the old days, you would have been clocked and never got up. So
they're doing the best in the league. They're trying to make it as good as it can. But the thing is, with all these changes and with the size of these guys, it's still a great product. And the reason why it's a great product is that people come because it's exciting, and that's it.
Yep, 100%. Totally agree with you.
Speaking of injuries, what do you think of that Radko Gudas knee-on-knee injury that caused Matthews to.
I'm one of these people. Like I think that the suspension was well deserved and all that stuff. But I will say I think that the Rocco Gudis that I knew 7-8 years ago was an absolute knee hunter, and he was dirty and all that type of stuff. This one, I do think more so that the hit got away from him. I think he was trying to go stick on puck and just lost his lane and then just didn't react the proper way. And then obviously, Austin suffers the horrible injury. But I don't think that this was I really don't think this was your typical Rocco Gudis dirty play. I just think it was a hit that went awry that he just got clumsy with.
Do you think it was the right call to handle that over the phone?
No, I think that one thing I will say is that the Department of Player Safety, this stuff is negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement. And if the NHLPA wants to change it, all the power to them. I think that the appeal process and having more than 5 games go to an independent arbitrator is one reason why a lot of times the NHL errs on the side of caution and doesn't have a in-person hearing and give out 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 game suspensions because they know that the NHLPA is going to appeal it. And so I think that here that they just decided we're going to take the easy way out in a lot of ways, go with 5 or less games by having a phone hearing. And then if they want to appeal, it just goes to Gary, and then Gary can make his decision from there. But to me, if they want to change the system, it's got to be collectively bargained with the NHLPA. And as much as the players complain about it and teams complain about it, the NHLPA is the entity that if they want to change it, they got to go to the league and change it. But then they've got to be on board and say, you know what, from an appeal process, we're not going to appeal every single long suspension.
Mike, I'm going to appeal to you because at the end of every show, podcast, Elena has to point like this, and I have to tell a joke.
Okay.
So I don't care what the other 3. I want you to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down when she gives me the cue.
Okay. You mean if it's a good joke or?
Yeah. I either get a laugh or I get this. So
I got you. All right. All right. Give him the cue.
He's got to give me the cue. Okay. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
This couple have been married a long time and they go to a romantic movie. Okay. And on the way out, the wife asks, "Why don't you make passionate love to me like he did on the screen?" And the husband says, "Are you kidding? You know how much he gets paid for that?"
That's a good one, Stan. I was not
Stan.
expecting that. So that was a good one. Yeah. Thumbs up.
Good to see you, pal. Really
Yeah,
good.
Stan, it's a pleasure to see you. I feel like I haven't talked to you or seen you in so long. And you're one of the people that I used to always look up to, watching you every time we come to Jersey or Long Island and watching you interview some of my heroes. It was awesome.
Elena, bring him back every single week.
Absolutely, yes, I would love that.
Michael, really appreciate you coming on Bottle Rocket. For anyone watching, make sure you check out Michael's work with The Athletic and his podcast, Worst Seats in the House, some of the best coverage in the game. Also, make sure to follow and subscribe to Bottle Rocket, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep, anytime.
Guys.
Yeah.